Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be talking about boundaries. So boundaries in relationships specifically is what we're going to be talking about, and why they're important and how to have boundaries. Ironically, a lot of people actually find that having boundaries and setting boundaries is easy. The hardest part of having boundaries is being able to actually stand by them. So I'm going to just kind of teach you little tips and tricks to be able to do that as well. So what are boundaries first and foremost? Essentially, boundaries are just your ability to be able to teach other people how to treat you. So, for example, I mean, we kind of have some common sense boundaries, I guess. You don't walk into somebody's home. You don't like call at 3 o'clock in the morning. Things like that. I mean, you might have some people that if you need them at 3 o'clock in the morning that you can call them, but in the average relationship that you have, it is not acceptable for you to call them somebody at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's a boundary. It's just as simple as that. You just don't do it. But I mean, we have those, common sense boundaries, like I called them, but we also each individually have boundaries of what's acceptable for us and what's not as far as our relationships go. So setting boundaries can be helpful because, I mean, there's a lot less hurt feelings. There's a lot less, you wondering why this person is disrespecting you, and the other person wondering like what your problem is when you're being a little bit standoffish with them. So boundaries actually are very helpful because for a few reasons. First of all, boundaries are helpful for the fact that it helps the other person in this relationship with you, know exactly how to treat you. So they don't have to wonder. They don't have to basically treat you however they want to treat you, and then find out the hard way that that's not the way that you want to be treated. Like I said, it just saves a lot of time and hurt feelings. And I personally wish that everybody came with a list of instructions of how to treat them, meaning a list of boundaries. What's acceptable to you? What is not acceptable to you? I would rather have somebody say to me, you know what, Lori, you've just crossed the boundary, or like, I don't appreciate you treating me this way, and telling me why, rather than continuing to let me mistreat them, even, like for them to feel like I'm mistreating them, even though I obviously I would feel like I'm not mistreating them, um, and without saying anything. The truth of it is why do we feel as human beings that we have to keep our mouth shut when somebody is crossing one of our boundaries? If we're not comfortable with the way somebody is treating us, we have that right to step up and say, hey, you know what? This is not cool. But here's the solution. It's not like you're just sitting there telling the person like that they are a horrible friend, that they're a horrible human being, and all that kind of stuff. You're not doing that. You're just saying that what you're doing in this moment is not acceptable for me. Can you please change it? That's it. A lot of people unfortunately think that when you're setting boundaries, that to stand by them, it has to be like some great big drama and there's yelling and screaming and all this kind of stuff. No. In fact, the truth of it is too with that is that's usually how it ends because we don't have boundaries. But boundaries actually takes that argumentative state away. Um, and you actually will learn too who is meant to be in your life. Like, so I'm going to give you an example or two different examples. Say I'm in a relationship with someone, like we're just friends. That person crosses a boundary of mine. I'll be like, you know what? I really don't appreciate you talking to me like that, or I really don't appreciate that you did this. Um, Somebody who is meant to be in your life, somebody who actually values you and respects you, will be like, you know what? I'm sorry. It won't happen again. Thanks for letting me know. All those kinds of things. They will be very accepting to it. Someone who is going to continue to disrespect you, whether you have boundaries or not, is going to have the response of, oh, well, that seems like your problem. I'm not going to make it my problem, and you better just get over yourself. And they point all the blame back at you. So, boundaries are very helpful, like I said, for so many different reasons. It makes relationships so much easier. It makes life easier. But the truth of it is, too, is that we have to figure out what our own boundaries are, because everyone, and everyone does this, it's not just you, it's not just me, it's everyone does this. Everyone treats other people the way they want to be treated. But so say for an example, if I'm in that relationship and I want to be treated a certain way, so I'm treating that other person in that the way that I want to be treated, then I'm thinking that it's fine because that's exactly how I want to be treated. But we all have different experiences. We've all been, different cultures, different religions, different backgrounds as far as how we were raised and what's acceptable. We should have that right to be able to say, you know what, I'm glad that this is how you would normally treat people, but I just need you to do this extra little thing, or not to do this thing. Like maybe some people just don't like when they have that friend that's constantly checking in on them and constantly being like, "Hey, how are you? What's going on in your life?" I mean, sometimes that can be very overpowering. I know I personally would not want that. And so I'd be like, "Okay, you know what? I love you. I value our friendship, but can we maybe have phone calls once a week instead of every single day or every other day?" Um, it's something it's as simple as that. Someone who is meant to be in your life will be respectful of that and like, I'm so sorry, like, I so sorry it kind of invaded your time, or I'm just so sorry that I was so demanding of your time. um but the truth of it is, if what happens if we don't have boundaries is people will continue to cross them, and then we end up getting either really, really irritated and ticked off, or we just blow up. All of that can be avoided just simply by putting boundaries in place. And then, like I said, behind them. And standing behind them doesn't have to be a big blow up thing. You talk to the person before they they continue to cross that boundary in between, before you get so have so much bottled up emotion that it just bursts out. It can all be avoided just by standing by them. Now, people pleasers, and I'm a recovering people pleaser. I kind of say that like half jokingly, but it's true too. I'm a recovering people pleaser, and and there's some people. I'll be honest. There's some people in my life that I was a people pleaser more so with than others. Um, just depending on the relationship. There was some people that I cared more about, that I would try to be more of what they wanted me to be. Um, and that's obviously, there's another issue, and it's usually it's kind of ironic, but not really, because it does make sense. But a lot of the people that have a hard time standing by their boundaries are people pleasers, because they don't want to say something to somebody because what if I hurt their feelings? And the truth is, you can say stuff to people without being hurtful, and if you say it in a timely manner, like I said, where it's not building up and building up and building up to where you're angry, then you won't. There's no need for you to have an angry outburst. And if the person doesn't like what you have said, that's on them. That's got nothing to do with you. Now, when I say boundaries, and this is where some people kind of take this and run with it, which I want to make this very clear in this video, this is not about honoring other people's triggers. I am a firm believer that my triggers belong to me, and no one else should have to watch what they say, watch what they do around me because I'm triggered. It's up to me to recognize that I'm triggered and heal it. So this having boundaries is not around triggers. It's around literally the way somebody treats you. So before you go and say to somebody, "Hey, I don't appreciate the way you're doing this," or "I don't appreciate the fact that you're doing that or saying that," make sure that you're not being triggered. Make sure that there's not an underlying trauma, that this emotion that you're feeling when this person has said or done this thing, make sure there's not an underlying trauma that this is attached to. Because if there is, then it's you that needs to heal it, and magically that trigger will go away once it's healed. So, with that being said, it's the best way, honestly, to figure out what your trigger, or sorry, what your boundaries are, is to write them down. Think about all the relationships that you've had. At this point, if you're watching this video, I mean, you're probably over 18 years old, so you've lived enough that you know what's acceptable in your life and what's not. Think about what you have had that you don't want. Think about the way people have treated you that you don't appreciate. Um, and obviously, the opposite of that would be what you do want. So when you know what you don't want, you know what you do want, and that actually works out because it'll help you to come up with your list of what your boundaries are. It's hard to stand by boundaries when you aren't clear on what they are. So very first and foremost, get clear on what they are, write them down. And second of all, as soon as someone crosses the boundary, I honestly, I'm not like the type of person where I'm just gonna like jump on somebody as soon as they cross the boundary one time. I will let them cross it once. The second time, I will say something to them, just and then the third time, at that point, they know about it. If they're still crossing it, then we're gonna have like a more serious conversation, and I'm gonna have to kind of question this person's role in my life. It's kind of like a three strikes and you're out kind of thing, how I have it around boundaries. But that works for me. It may not work for you, and it doesn't obviously doesn't work in every situation because what might work for somebody that I see, like I'm casual friends with versus somebody who I'm like related to and really close with, because they're family. Um, I mean, it's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to have a little bit more understanding and a little bit more leeway with people that I'm really close to versus people that I'm not. But that doesn't mean that those people that are close to you should have free reign because, like I said, if they respect the relationship, they're going to um, they're going to value the fact of what you said. They will anyone in your life who has a problem with you having boundaries are the ones that would constantly cross them anyway. Knowing them or not knowing them, those are the only people you're going to have a problem with. So let that be a lesson to you of who's meant to be in your life and maybe who's not meant to be in your life to the capacity that they currently are. There's a lot that you can learn around having boundaries around yourself and around other people and around your relationships. And the truth of it is every one of us deserve to have a life where the people that are living in our life with us actually value us as a person, value the relationship with us as much as we value them. If all the value of the relationship is only coming from us, you really have to stop and think, is this the kind of relationship I want to have in my life? All right, guys, that is it for this video. I'll see you back here soon. Until then, take care. Bye for now.